Well, hello there, beautiful. It's Kylie Patchett here. Welcome to the Wild and Finally Fecking Free podcast. I deeply believe that the years during and beyond perimenopause are a rite of passage. All of a sudden, we find ourselves on the precipice of a life transition where our brain literally rewires and runs out of fucks to give. We find ourselves shifting identity, no longer caring what other people think, and being invited to expand into new ways of being. Here, we share the real and raw stories from women who've been through deep midlife metamorphosis, taken a leap of faith, or broken the ties that bind us in patterns of staying small, stuck, and like our needs just don't matter. This is the midlife medicine you didn't even know you needed. Stories full of joy, despair, freedom, courage, and deep self-honoring. I am so glad you found us. Welcome. Hello, beautiful one. It's Kylie here. Before we dive into this episode, I have a favor to ask you. You are about to meet Emma Gray, who's already an accomplished author and speaker and advocate for heart health and all sorts of amazing things. Beautiful mum, beautiful wife, beautiful sister and friend and community member. And I would really, really like to give Emma a hand doing something. You see, this story is about makes me cry still, the unfathomable sudden loss of Emma's husband, Jeff. And the way that a comment from Emma's friend Beck Sparrow gave her a guiding light to always find joy and light in amongst the darkness is the way that she's navigated deep grief and deep loss and raising her kids since that point in time. She has actually used all of that journey to inspire her very first adult novel called The Last Love Note. It is out January 24th, 2023. And the reason we're putting this episode out earlier than scheduled is because I would deeply, deeply love to help Em get this book into the hearts and minds and souls of as many people as possible, because I have a strong sense that although it's a novel, this book will change the way that people look at grief and loss and having loved and lost. And we all know that, there's some funny algorithms that go into whether a book is a bestseller or not. And one of the big keys in that is pre-order copies. And the good news is this book is available for pre-order right now. So after you have listened and probably cried and laughed and been inspired by this beautiful human, please head over to either the show notes or to my social channels, both of which on Facey and Instagram are just Kylie Patchett. Find the pre-order link from Penguin and go and sort yourself out a copy. I'll remind you at the end of the show, but in the meantime, grab your tissues, strap yourself in, open that big, beautiful heart of yours and listen and learn. I am so excited. I know I say that about every interview, but today there is someone who is going to speak to us that I have been, slightly connected to over the years, but I've watched her traverse something that get emotional before I even introduce you. I've just seen her traverse with such a strength of spirit and resilience, and also the choice to find joy again and again and again, and the light moments of life again and again and again in the middle of grief. Introducing you to the beautiful Emma Gray. Hello, Emma. How are you?
Hi, Kylie. Oh, it's so lovely it's actually lovely to hear the emotion in your voice, when you talk about just in the introduction, because for me, that's kind of a connection to Jeff, and it just sort of brings it back to me.
When I think about people that have love stories, you are always top of mind. And I know every year on your anniversary, and I think sometimes his birthday, you share the wedding picture where he's just looking at you with such rapture and delight in his face. And I just think, love story. So Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, where do we start? How would you like to introduce yourself? You have so many different hats, and when I feel into you, one of your greatest gifts that I see in all of the hats is sharing experiences and evoking emotional responses. Like, I'm crying before I even introduce you, but the writing, the screenplay, the everything. So introduce yourself. And then also, when I sent you an invitation and I said the show's about sharing metamorphosis, what came to your mind?
It is quite tricky. I always find this question difficult to answer. I guess at heart, I would say that I'm a writer, and yes. I've always, ever since I fell in love with Anne of Green Gables at 14, I've known that I was a writer, and that would be my main identity, I guess. But I find that goes into all the other work that I do. I work with Audrey Thomas, who is an Adelaide-based coach, and we offer accountability coaching, often with midlife women as well.
Yes.
And then in the last few years, I've also taken up photography, just in an amateur way, but I absolutely adore it. So any of those forms of creativity really are close to my heart. And of course my family. So I'm a mum of 3. You're lucky you didn't talk to me yesterday, because my second daughter moved out of home yesterday, so I cried for most of the day, but but I'm very happy for her. So I'm a mum of 3, two girls who are in their mid-20s now, and 22 and 24, and a little boy, Seb, who is just turned 12.
I'm just about to start high school.
Yeah,
I feel like I've been
more crying.
Yeah, I know. Oh, and honouring your tender mama heart, because I had I had our youngest move out, and she is significantly younger. And I just feel like, that transition, I didn't even know it was coming. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for one of my little birds to fly the nest. So really, really hearing you like that.
Yeah.
Funny.
I had a teary conversation in the car yesterday with my daughter's partner's mother, because she of course is in the same boat, because they've moved in together.
Yes.
And she said too, because Tom is their youngest, and so now she said it really is a matter of having to reinvent who you are.
Absolutely.
Not so much for me, because I still have one at home, but the house suddenly feels so much smaller, and we feel like we're rattling around a little bit in this house, just the two of us. So it does take a lot of adjustment, doesn't it?
Yeah, I totally that's exactly what I feel like. It's like the empty nest, the perimenopause timing that happens, well, for some of us at the same time, and then that chance of like, okay, so there's time and space all of a sudden to feel into who I want to be in this stage of my life, and what's not working, what is working, and there's that deliciousness in it, but there's also I'm feeling a lot of grief around that end of things.
Oh, and definitely.
It's so funny. I like, you were crying yesterday. I listened to a song, which Cleo, my youngest daughter, she sends me country songs all the time, because country songs like they tell stories, right? And not the my dog died and my car's broken, like not that, but this these beautiful life. And this song was about like next thing and it's like the journey. And one of the lines, I'm gonna make myself emotional again, is like watching your kids play in your yard, and I'm just like, just let me deal with one step at a time.
I know. I remember when Hannah was born, a family friend gave us a card, and it said, the hardest part of parenting is letting them go little by little as they're and I remember the milk was coming in. I was a complete emotional wreck. And I looked at this tiny little baby, and she's doing PhD now. So it's
crazy,
just,
isn't it?
Where did that go? It's even the night before her sister left a couple of nights ago, I thought, she's been doing her own washing for years, but I just suddenly wanted to do her washing.
Yeah.
And I was doing it, and I was envisaging this bucket of nappy sand with little 000 onesies in it, and that sort of thing, and crying. Oh gosh.
Oh, so
but then
sweet.
I then think how privileged are we to be this heartbroken, because it means that we've got this beautiful
bond,
you know.
Yeah. And what a privilege to see them step into like this amazing life that they're creating. And, you know, always with fingers crossed of like, I hope I guided them okay when I was still guiding them, but knowing that they're and watching their personalities. And I know you post sometimes about like the level of conversation that you have with them, and it's just like this amazing human being that I'm privileged of being a parent of. Like I just I find that almost too much at times. Like, you know, that feeling. Oh my goodness. Okay.
But I guess what brought me here today
sorry, we're digressing already.
Is that I headed into my 40s really happy and positive about this decade. I'm now 49.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, gosh, you know, I hear so many great things about turning 40 and how life is just beginning and there's all this potential. And I feel as though, you know, work was going well and family was going well, and just, you know, a lovely couple of years there at the start of the decade. And then we were hit by this awful tragedy in our family, and my husband Jeff just died unexpectedly, had a heart attack, and suddenly the rug was ripped out from under us, and you know, we were living in a nightmare. And it's been, so the 40s have turned out to be incredibly different from what I had hoped and imagined, but I've also learnt a huge amount about life and about creativity and about family and connection and all of those things. So I guess that's where I probably fit into your podcast. I know I've been listening to some of the other guests talking, and you just collect people with extraordinary stories. It's a real privilege to be included.
I just love, I was saying before we started recording, I've made this realization, I don't know why it's taken me so long, is I just love stories. I love hearing where people have come from and what even the stories that we've been taught as kids, like how they inform, you know, our behavior and whatever. And I think I remember when Jeff first died, we'd only just seen each other at Andrew Aspas's conference. I don't know how many, but it felt like a couple of months.
It wasn't long before.
And I remember seeing something on Facebook, and I was just like, I remember ringing Ange and going, what the fuck just happened? How? Like, what do you, and like from an external observer and only, you know, just connected to you, I was trying to make sense of something that felt completely
inconceivable is the word.
Yeah, unfathomable. Yeah. Hello, Frank, in the background. The dog's just popped in, everyone. I know you can't even see that. And I've, you know, and that was me, like someone that wasn't part of your family or in a circle. And I just think, how do you start to try and make sense of that? And
well, I think that's the problem when somebody dies unexpectedly and suddenly you're not even able to start processing or even feeling the grief because you're just in shock. It's shock. For I don't know how long. I mean, to this day, 6 years later, I still sometimes can't even fathom that it's true.
No.
I don't think we'll ever accept that it really has happened. It doesn't seem possible. And for somebody who was so vibrant and alive and brilliant and, you know, a wonderful family, father to our little 5-year-old at the time, you know, it is unfathomable. And what I've learned since then in meeting, because when somebody dies and you then start talking to other people, like, you know, every single one of us obviously will lose a lot of people in our lives, but we don't do it well, and we don't do grief and death well in our culture. So we don't know what to say. People don't share their stories, and then it comes as an even greater shock to you when it happens.
Hey gorgeous, we interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, my sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you'll get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old, learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliepaget.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode. And I feel like I did an interview just recently with someone who was had originally been a naturopath that specialized in oncology. And the reason she went into that was because her dad died of cancer, and it felt like a calling to her to walk alongside someone during that transition. And so she was very comfortable, and we spoke a lot about death and dying and whatever. But she was saying she now lives in Peru, and there's this deep reverence for the passage of someone from this life to whatever you believe comes next. We don't do that. We have a funeral.
No. Yeah, and we can't wait for it to be over. And we'll say things like, I just need to get through the funeral. And then, that kind of thing just we say all the time, because it's seen as this, and it is just an awful, awful thing, an awful experience. But we just don't manage it in a way that helps us, I don't think.
No. And I also think, and I can't remember exactly what you've said on this, but I know that you've mentioned before, it's like this, you get a kind of, in inverted commas, allowed time to grieve. And then it's like, well, life should be back to normal, like a year down the track or 2 years or whatever this ridiculous arbitrary time frame is. And the reality is, and I obviously haven't lost a partner, I've lost my dad, and I still, that's been 11 years, and I still have, how weird is this that we're having this conversation today? I had a client the other night, and she was talking about having something going on in her mouth, and I got this book out that I always look at that's like the meaning of things in your body. And in that exact page is the last Christmas card my dad wrote me. But that huge, the well of oh my God, that connection is not there anymore. And similar to Jeff, very big personality. So feels like this massive hole. And then, and what I continue to observe, you and your girls and Seb and your whole extended family, this
you've always anchored into what joy can we open up. And I don't know whether joy is the word that you would use, but what goodness, what lightness, what connection can we seek in amongst this horrible situation?
I actually had a conversation very early on with my friend Rebecca Sparrow, and Beck had lost her daughter Georgie, who was stillborn. And Beck said to me, and I think not just to me, she's written about it, said that she made a decision early on that Georgie's death was going to turn the light up in her life, not down. And that had a profound impact on me at the time. And I remember thinking, I can see how that can happen. I think it's a really tricky thing to tread because there's this whole concept of post-traumatic growth after you've been through something. And I'm always really careful to talk about that because I think it's just so subjective in terms of, you know, the resilience you've got before you went into the trauma, the support you have around you, a whole range of other factors that play into whether or not you're going to grow from the trauma or whether it's going to sort of, beat you, really, which is what sometimes happens. And so I'm careful about that concept. But at the same time, I remember thinking it made sense to me. And there were, I remember even the night that that Jeff died, and I found him and attempted to save him, and it was too late. And there was a period of time between when the paramedics were there and the police arrived. This was at home. And so I had a little bit of time, and I just was struck even in those early minutes of the comparison between the complete stillness of death and the fact that I was standing there and my heart was beating. I could feel my heart beating, of course, because it was probably racing from the shock. But also I could sense every breath I was taking, and I felt alive in a way that I've never felt before or since, because I think I was standing there literally with death, and with, there's just this precipice that we're on at all times and we don't realise it, that there's just a split second between life and death. And it was this extraordinary realisation. And I think once you've had that realisation, two things happen. One is that the things that used to bother you and bug you and you used to spend time ranting about online and all that sort of stuff just falls away because it's just such a waste of time and energy. So there's that, you suddenly see what's important and what's just not worth getting upset about. But you also become aware of the preciousness of time, and so you realise that you kind of do grasp for these moments of joy, and you're aware that you're going to have deep sorrow and utter profound grief. So when you're having a day, I remember going out for dinner once the first time I went out for dinner with a friend after Jeff had died, and it must have been, I don't know, I think it was about 2 months later or something. And I was walking back to the car and I realised that I felt a fleeting feeling of happiness. I just had a lovely night with her. We'd had a great chat, and I hadn't seen her in ages and that sort of thing. We'd had a lovely night, and then immediately that was chased by this feeling of grief, of guilt. Sorry, how could I possibly have felt happy? But you realise it's those moments that you do have to grasp onto, because you're going to be sitting with this sadness for the rest of your life. And
absolutely.
So any opportunity for light, I think you've just got to welcome it in. And very early on as a family, we made this decision that we were going to look for one life-affirming thing every day, and it didn't matter if it was simply that someone let you in a car park or, smiled at you in a supermarket queue or something. It didn't have to be this major gesture or, major event, but just one tiny thing. And of course, once we looked for one, we just kept seeing things all the time.
Of course.
But I guess the whole thing, our attitude as a family, I remember coming in after the funeral, or after the wake that we had after the funeral, walking in that night. It was the dead of winter in Canberra, so it was just miserable in the end of July, early August. And I walked into the house, kicked my shoes off, which was just, I hadn't worn heels in ages. I was wearing these sort of shoes that were uncomfortable, and came in the house. We'd turn the heating off, so we came into a cold house. It was dark. And I looked at these 3 children and I just thought, what now? I was thinking, what now, to myself, but then I was thinking they need some sort of leadership in this moment. Like they're looking at me thinking, what are we going to do? And I looked around the room and the whole house was just full of flowers. And, as happens when someone dies, people send you beautiful flowers. And I remember thinking, what's going to happen in a week or 10 days? We're going to have
dead flowers everywhere,
dying all over the house. So I said, okay, so tomorrow we're going to invite the family over and we're going to get all the flowers into a central place. We're going to pull everything apart, repurpose them into bunches, and then we're going to just drive to the hospital and give them, just walk into a random ward. I don't know, looking back on it, I'm thinking that this is probably quite, logistically a problem at the other end for the hospital. I don't know. But at the time we did it and just deliver them. And so we did that, and it was, in itself, it was a good distracting thing to do.
Yeah.
But it also kind of set the tone, I think, for us to find meaning and find sort of symbolism in a lot of the things that we did from that moment on. And I mean, I'm still doing it now, writing, and I mean, we do it all the time. We're often, you look at plants in the garden, or even the way that we do go, every year on the anniversary of Jeff's death, we decided that we would, rather than sit around crying, which we also do, of course, we thought we'll have a day of
celebrating.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I'd say celebrating. It's more, we usually go for a day trip to the coast and we go to the beach, and then we buy some Lego and a book or whatever, we sort of buy something for ourselves, or we just do things that he would approve of. I think he would much rather have us do a day like that. And that's what works for us, but not necessarily for everyone. That's the other thing. I think there's so much judgment in grief, and you can't get it right because everybody's got a different view of it and a different experience and a different death. I mean, every death we have is different.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one of the things we do.
I feel like it's not only looking for those light moments and hanging on to them, but you have continued to deeply connect with Jeff and what he meant to all of you, what type of father he was, his brilliant mind, all of the things that he used to do professionally. And to me, that's, and as you say, everyone would be different and everyone needs different things, because obviously we're all different human beings. But again, external observing, it's like, I don't know, it reminds me of, I've been listening to this song of Macklemore, weird reference, but he says you die twice, once when they bury you in the grave, and the second time is the last time that somebody mentions your name.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like the legacy that, like, you've continued to, I don't know whether legacy is the right word either, but that continued connection to who he was to all of you and how he did life, so that it's not just, that it's almost like, oh, you're dead now. Okay, well, you're disposed of. It's like, well, no. This person's legacy and parenting and partnering and all of that beautiful energy that he had when he was here physically is continuing. There's no stop to that.
I think part of that is because I was left with his 5-year-old son. So I have consciously continued to keep him alive for Seb, because he unfortunately has a few memories of his dad, but will have most of them come from secondary sources.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anybody, I think, or a lot of people who, I don't want to speak for everybody who's lost someone, but a lot of people who've lost someone do like to talk about that person, and it keeps them alive in their, you know, to hear other people's stories about them and that sort of thing. So I think, you know, there are times where we just can't go there and can't think about him, and it's all too much. But a lot of the time it's just in daily conversation. I mean, you're thinking about the person literally all the time when it's a deep, close, you know, life partner that you've lost.
Yeah.
Even in the brightest of times when things are going really well, it's almost like the background music or something all the time. And so people worry that they're going to remind you of your loss. You know, you can't be reminded of the thing that's on your mind at all times.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that constant, I think for me, with Dad, and again, acknowledging very different relationship, but that it's the background of, and particularly with the kids, and I'm sure you would have that with Zeb, like every time he does something, is there not the automatic, like, your father would be so proud of you?
Yes.
Like you would, and I feel that with my dad all the time. He died when my girls were 5 and 6. So, you know, excuse me, they don't have, well, my oldest daughter has clear memories of him, but certainly not Cleo. And yeah, that constant, like, it's like a reference point. That's like the touchstone that you're always coming home to. It's like you would be so, you know, like proud, and he did something the other day that was just like you, like that, you know, all of those sort of threads. And I think that to me is incredibly special, because you write a lot on Facebook as well about all of these different things that roll through. And I know you don't, you know, write about everything, but it's just been such a privilege. I said to you before, like, I'm inspired constantly with how you're choosing to navigate. And I know maybe it's not so much of a choice as like I'm hanging on to something, you know. Can you talk a little bit more about, you said before you'd learned a lot of lessons about creativity. I'm curious what you mean by that. Like what's
Well, I've found that creativity has been crucial to me in my ability to process the grief. It's been an escape as well.
Yes.
I knew as soon as Jeff, well, not as soon as Jeff died, but within days, I sort of realised, of course, I will be writing about grief, an experience that I hadn't, you know, I'd lost grandparents before, but I hadn't really had a deep loss before this. And I knew that I was going to have to process this in writing. And I didn't know at the time what that would look like. I thought I probably would write a book about grief at some point. And would that be a memoir? I went through that sort of in my mind. Well, it was a bit close to our story. And then it was, you know, I could write a self-help sort of, you know, non-fiction book.
Yeah.
But then I found a brilliant resource online. I thought, why would I bother sort of reinventing that wheel when I think that Megan Devine from Refuge in Grief, give her a little plug. Don't know her at all, but I recommend her to everybody because she's just absolutely fantastic resource. She's American. And then eventually I decided to fictionalise this book, and for me, that just gave me an opportunity to be able to pour a whole lot of emotions that I'd experienced into a fictional character's life. And the story's not my own, but I'm sure all my Facebook friends are going to think, oh, wow, is every word of this true? Because so much of it is from little anecdotes that they'll recognise. And it just was this sort of barrier between truth and fiction that let me sort of play in that space and say things. And you know, I could talk about her struggle with wishing she was at the end of her life and things like that. And it was a character, not me, despite the fact that, you know, I'd had moments where those sorts of just, I don't want to say, how do I say this? It wasn't a desire to end my life there and then. It was just a wish that my life, that I was you know, done. 80 or 90 or something, and it was over. And And so I think being able to write a fictional character and put your emotions into that was just really incredibly healing for me, and also helps me now share this sort of thing and get conversations like this going with other people who've experienced it or who think about it. But it wasn't just writing. It was also, I went through a crazy phase of doing Zentangling. It all started with that.
I remember this phase.
I couldn't stop. It just was an obsession. I couldn't stop it. It just was. And then that led on to, I'll just try watercolour painting. Absolutely hopeless at that, but just went to all these different sort of artistic things.
Like
and
outlets.
I'm sure it was that I had so much emotion and so much inside me that obviously had to come out somehow, that it just came out like that. And
it's like opening the floodgates, isn't it? It's I always come back to the concept of, I was actually just talking to this with a friend a couple of hours ago. We're talking about that the tendency that we still unfortunately have in our society is when we see someone experiencing an intense emotion, and particularly sadness or, devastation or whatever, it's like, pat, 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 it'll all be okay. And the kind of unsaid story behind that is, don't cry. Like,
this is making me uncomfortable.
It's making me uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm like, but from a physiological perspective, emotion rises to be processed, to be let go, to be experienced and freed. And when we don't give ourselves permission to do that, it goes somewhere. It gets locked away in us somewhere. And I think listening to what you're saying about creativity, it's like, this is a way of releasing this stuff from my body or my energy field, or I don't know what the correct sort of science way of saying it would be, but that channeling of emotion. And I definitely, with the fiction end of the book, like being able to, I totally agree, telling your story is always healing, always, always. And not only healing to us, healing to the people that hear it, that have similar thoughts, feelings, whatever. But what I'm hearing, if I'm correct, is that it's not so much the distance, but it's like fictionalizing a character makes it easier or more allowable to actually go down some tracks that maybe it's not so safe to do yet for ourselves, because obviously we're connected to people that love us and would hate to hear, I don't want to be here, or whatever the, the painful thing is, the tricky thing. Now this beautiful book is just about to be released, isn't it? Do you want to give us what's the title and where can we I'd put the links to where we can find it, but I'll go backwards in time and do that.
Yes. It's called The Last Love Note, and Penguin's releasing it in 24th of January. And I'm so excited about the book, just because I just put so much of myself, just so much of my work into this. I took about 3 years on and off to write it, and I learned so much about writing. I'd had other books published before, but I just feel like this was a step up, and it's because of the subject matter. They always say, write what you know, and I have written what I know before, but nothing to this depth. And I wanted to, a novel about grief could be quite a depressing read, but it's landed on the page in the form of a romantic comedy. So I
cannot wait to get my hands on this.
It's full. It's sort of like, it's just like all those rom-coms that we've sort of loved over the years. It's a parallel story about her husband, the loss of her husband, and then her new love that she finds later on. And it was just such a joy to write. I mean, it was really challenging to write as well because of I really went there with the grief stuff. I didn't make it our own story. Her husband doesn't have a heart attack. It's not a sudden loss that she experiences. And even that was an opportunity for me to then consider, other types of death. And I know, we've got this going on in our family with my mum, who's got advanced dementia now.
Yes.
And, watching a slow, protracted decline is just agonizing, as anyone knows, as you would know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I often think, when somebody dies suddenly, you miss the opportunity to say your final things. You can't say goodbye. It sideswipes you, all of that. But you often miss that too in losing someone gradually, because you save things until it's too late to say them, or it still comes as a shock, because we never really believe it's going to happen. Even when we're expecting it.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And I think the beginning of, I've spent a couple of years working in aged care, but also going through like a family member with dementia, not very advanced at the moment, but seeing little pieces of that person dissolve in front of you.
Yeah, it's definitely
really
grieving.
Hard.
Yeah, you're grieving somebody while they're still alive.
Yeah.
And you're losing that person in front of your very eyes, as you say. Yeah,
absolutely. So many.
I guess the thing I'm noticing
layers.
is that my parents are 90, and we've just had this incredibly amazing, I'm just so lucky. My sister and I have had such a close, beautiful family all our lives. And, watching in Mum now, I'm looking at her thinking, this is the price of getting old. And, so many people don't have this privilege of getting to the point where they do reach this stage of deterioration. And so we're sort of thankful that we got so far. They got so far, through their lives before this started happening. And, you compare that to Jeff and any other, and, a lot of just horrifically traumatic stories of people I know who've lost children and young people. It's just a very different form of grief, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a grief of all of the years that they haven't been able to live into things. When you mention your family, this is something I asked you, and then we said, we'll just start recording. Because I always do this. I ask questions and then I'm like, damn it. Do you feel like because it feels to me like it was very, very soon afterwards that you made that decision, even with the flower concept the next day, to make something positive out of the horrible. Do you feel like the way that your family, you and your sister and your parents, and your connection, and obvious to me, like really, really conscious connection and joy and, the goodness of life. Do you feel like growing up in that environment, that was just the automatic thing that you just went down? Or
it's so interesting, because I feel like the way that I am, I feel like I should have had parents who were kind of, overt optimists who were, reading, I don't know, Tony Robbins. and and it wasn't like that. But the family was just such a loving, close-knit, secure base that I think I was saying to you before that I realised quickly after Jeff died that I was coming into this trauma and this tragedy from a very strong base. And I think that's the thing that people come into this from all kinds of different backgrounds, and it can be so much harder because of other things that are going on in life, or other things you don't have. And I went to a UN Women Widow International Year of the Widow, or something, International Widows Day, something like that, a few months after Jeff died. And I was just struck by the fact that if this had to happen to me anywhere in the world, I'm in the best place for this to have happened. That there are places where this would mean I was an outcast and I had to marry my husband's brother now, and all this sort of stuff that I never even had to think about. And so I think, I don't know, I think it comes back to that whole realisation that life is so short, and that, I mean, you could give up. You could give up on all of the joy and just see the negatives, but you've still got to live every day.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
well, you may as well be trying to go for
You
the
may as
good
well
stuff.
pay attention to the good stuff.
And the thing is that even the good stuff is hard now, because not long after Jeff died, I remember getting a publishing deal for two of my teenage novels that I'd been writing, he'd read. And I was in the process at the time of co-writing a musical with my childhood friend from school, who's Sally Whitwell, who's a composer in Sydney. And she and I latched onto these novels and co-wrote musicals. And I met a friend, Ness, who the day I met her was not long after Jeff died. I remember thinking, I don't know if her energy is what I can sort of take on right now, because she's a drama teacher. So enough said. And
jazz hands and sparkles.
Yeah, exactly, that sort of thing. And I now have her sequined hand-me-downs in my wardrobe. But she turned out to be exactly the person I needed, because she just has this gung-ho energy. And she said, without having read my book or heard a single song from the show, she said, we're going to put that on at our school. So within a few months, we were then thrown into this amazing experience of doing a high school musical. And
so cool.
Just being surrounded by this teenage energy and the vibrance, and it was all, about a boy band, and it was just, fun. The whole thing was fun. And I think that show absolutely saved me in that first 12 months. It couldn't have been more different from what I was going through.
Yes.
It was the complete opposite. It was glitter cannons. It was everything, and disco ball, all of that. And it saved me. I don't know. And look back and think that year would have been so different without that energy in our lives. And, Jeff would have just been so proud of everything that's unfolded, I think. But there's this whole thing from the past where people who were in mourning would, be wearing black for the first 12 months and not able to go out or do anything. And I just really feel for people who to this day may have that sort of cultural response, because doing those joyous things doesn't take any of the sadness away. It doesn't touch the grief at all. All it does is add in some extra light.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Isn't that what we need? And I think, in the last couple of years, we've all been through and still going through this huge global challenge together. And, we saw that everyone kind of reached for the creativity and it was the arts that propped us up through the pandemic. And I think, when people lose someone, if they feel like I couldn't read for years, actually. Could not focus on reading at all. I could write but not read. And eventually audiobooks rescued me. But people sometimes say, I feel like I shouldn't go to the movies, or I shouldn't, read a novel. But if that's what you feel like doing, it's exactly what to do. It's all about, is this going to turn up the light for me in any little way? And if so, do it. Provided you're not hurting somebody else, or provided it's a good thing for you and those around you. I think it would be so easy to reach for other ways to attack the horrible feelings that we're having, and I never sort of judge anybody's response to trauma or to grief, because I made a decision right at the start that I wasn't going to drink, for example. And I didn't have any alcohol for a couple of years after Jeff died, because I could see that would be dangerous. And so I think, if you're going to worry about watching a rom-com or, reading a fun novel, I hope that people will let that go.
Yeah, exactly. And, one introduces light and one is an attempt to numb. And it's like, no good comes from that. And then coming back to what you said before, like this concept of there's a right way to grieve, and it's like there's not a right way to grieve. And the grief, to me, I don't know, keeps changing and morphing. And
yesterday when Sophie moved out of home, part of my grief was flashbacks to the night that Jeff died, when she was there for me. And as a 15-year-old, she just happened to be the one that was home that night. And then I got all emotional about her being sort of this right-hand person through all of that over the last few years. And so it's never, you think you've processed it from every possible angle, but you haven't. Because more things continue to happen. Seb's about to finish primary school. There's another milestone.
That he won't see.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, and it's a similar sort of thread of, I know that you shifted out of the home where Jeff passed away. When it was early days and you were in the same environment, how did you decide when to let that home go? Because I don't know, there's so many layers of memories,
there's so
and
many
happenings and events and whatnot.
And there are people who I've met who have had a similar experience and they have never re-entered their home since the person passed away there. And I completely understand how that would be the case. I had to sleep with the lights on for weeks, all the lights in the house. I remember saying, how am I going to afford the electricity? And I remember my dad saying, don't worry, he's the one who's been switching off lights that I've left on since I was a kid.
Yes, that was my dad's role too.
Don't worry about it. It doesn't cost that much. I felt quite duped. But
I've been ripped off for 40
now when we look
years.
at energy prices. But, but it was this whole need for light. I went to IKEA. I remember getting a whole lot of little lamps and things and putting them in the corner near Jeff's study because, and that's not where he died, but it was him. It was his area. And I had to light that up, physically light it up. People always say don't make any big decisions in the first 12 months, and I must admit, looking back, I did have wild ideas during that 12 months. I wanted to house swap to Ireland and all these, knock down walls, I just went through so many phases. But in the end, I'm so glad that we moved. And so I made a decision that we would build a house, and that was also important. I wanted to physically crawl around on the ground underneath the house that we would build, and we did that and sat on the land and designed this house with a friend she's a interior stylist, and she and I would sit down every Friday night and try to draw plans of a house and then take it to the builder, who then, of course, got it professionally designed. But
to interpret it.
It's not going to fall down around my ears. But it was, and everything about the house was about natural light and everything's white. And that was all part of this attempt to just light everything up out of the darkness, really.
Yeah, quite literally.
Yeah. And then I had to think really carefully about what things of Jeff's would I take into the new house. I mean, I've kept so many things, but what did I want literally around me to look at? Because at first I just needed my eyes to not see reminders.
Yes.
And it took us a while, and then we would incorporate little things that meant, a lot. I've got all his books on a shelf because he wrote a lot of books. He was a history professor. And so there was all these decisions the whole way through, but it lifted so much just trauma from us to move into a new space. And I know there are people who would feel the opposite and that want to stay where they were and have those memories, and that's another completely valid way to be. But I think because we had such a traumatic thing happen inside those walls, it just was dragging us down. But before I sold that house, I felt this strong need to return it to its sort of former glory, which wasn't that glorious, but new paint and garden, and I had some amazing people helping with that, and that just seemed important to be able to hand it over to the next people fresh in a state that was fresh and exactly. But again, that was another way of making meaning out of the death, and those kinds of things are just, I've got some pavers from that house in the garden here, so like a stepping stone between both houses.
Beautiful.
That sort of thing.
I saw the healing, like I've got such a strong visual picture, but the visceral feeling of literally sitting in the ground where you're going to create your home.
Yeah.
Like literally building piece by piece.
Yes.
a new environment to, and not reinvent's not the right word, but to keep stepping forward, because you have no choice but to step forward.
That's right.
And yeah, I totally understand the lightness and brightness. And I know what was something when you started talking about the house, I think it was about the big bathtub or something. And I'm just like, and I love how you describe your neighborhood. Like, you know, I always feel like
we live in a quirky
little village. Yes. It's like a quirky little place, and
it is.
all the little happenings and stuff. But it feels very much like you consciously created bit by bit something that felt lighter. And now that I talk to you about all of the decisions, it's the same sort of thread, isn't it?
You know, it's really very strange. I can't explain this, but all my life I have known that I would have a grief house. And I used to, so every time I moved house, I remember asking myself, is this going to be the grief house? It's almost like I knew something was coming of this magnitude. And that's gone now, because I know that was the grief house. And and I also know that this house that I adore, that could potentially be the house I could stay in for the rest of my life, I feel like it's not going to be. I feel like it's a temporary house for us. Yeah. It's our soft place to land, and we'll be here for a few years, because, you know, it's literally, my son can walk to school in under 1 minute.
Yes.
So that
let's
in
not
itself,
let that go.
That in itself. But I feel like it's just magical in some way, and whether it is or not, I don't know. But when you believe that it is, it just, you know, why not? Why not go down that path?
Oh, I'm all for choosing your reality. You just choose whatever belief you want to be living into. To me, the word, when you're describing, it's like, the soft place to land, it's like sanctuary. Like, you know, like the place that we, came to do more healing. Yes. And it's not necessarily where we're going to be ending up. It's that transition. So much wisdom. Wowzers. Oh, Emma, I've got so many other questions I want to ask you. Let's just settle on one. What? You said you learned a lot about, you know, consciously choosing the creativity and gratitude. What would you... I really don't like questions like this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In the hypothetical universe, if you could go back to 30-year-old Emma, what advice would you give her, coloured by everything that you've just been through in the last 6 years?
Well, the obvious thing that comes to mind would be to say to everybody, and unapologetic about this, I tell everyone, go and get your heart tested.
Heart checked, yeah. I knew you were going to say that. Go and get your heart checked.
That's the
number one.
Immediate practical response.
Yes.
And since I've been sort of carrying on about that now for the last 6 years, I've had numerous people tell me they did that and had to have surgery, and now they're alive and would otherwise not be here. So it's just extraordinarily important to go to your GP and ask for a heart test. So my own dad is in that category. He eventually gave in and went and had an angiogram and had 97% blocked arteries. And
I remember reading that and I was like, ooh.
Oh, he was, minutes, not minutes, he was on the edge of a heart attack. And so I took him for the day surgery, walked out of it feeling better than he walked in, you know. And so that, of course, is my obvious practical response to that question. The other one, I guess, would be, this is amongst what we've been through is right up there in my top 2 fears. You probably know this, you know, when you've got children, you know what the top fear is. But
I
don't even want to say.
We won't voice that one.
But losing my life partner is up there in the top 2 fears, and it's something that I remember. If I ever envisaged it, like if you saw a movie or whatever, and the partner died, I remember thinking, I don't think I'd survive that. And I discovered that you can survive the unimaginable things with a lot of support around you, and just one day after another, sometimes 1 hour after another, sometimes 1 minute.
Yeah.
And you can surprise yourself, partly because you don't have any choice but to continue on, but also, in fact, I was watching an episode of The Crown and they were talking about grief and how you end up just having to absorb it into your body.
Yeah.
And it changes you forever. But you will be happy again, never in the same way, I think he said. And that's so true. But I would go back and say something terrible is going to happen to you and you're going to think it's impossible to survive it, but you will. And, it's the same message I would give to my kids who have lived through that, but also for anything in the future that may happen, that it will seem like it's going to, it's that whole thing. It's that doesn't kill us, makes us stronger. They'll get through. And so I think that's what it would be. It's, even now I catch myself hearing other people's stories and thinking, oh, that's horrific. I just don't think I could ever get through that. And then I realise I actually have lived the same thing sometimes,
Yeah.
And so it's just a gradual process of getting, putting one foot in front of another. But that life-affirming, just looking for those little life-affirming things, I think is crucial.
And I'm going to ask an addendum question. I know I said that was my final one, but if you could tell your 30-year-old self that, what do you reckon she would change? In terms of not
I don't think she'd change anything. She might get the heart checks done.
Well, yes,
but
that is an obvious one.
I think that fear would still be that she wouldn't believe me, is what that would. I'm pretty sure she would say, no, that's unimaginable. I could not survive something like that.
Yeah.
Because even now I still believe that, which is, so.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
So strange. But I think it's just about us having faith in the resilience of the human spirit and in the support of other people. And I remember early on thinking, I don't care what weird and wonderful things people offer to do to help. I'm just going to say yes to everything and see what happens. And we were really inundated with incredible support because of that, I think, because it's you need people who'll say yes to help. We give other people help now and before, but at that time we were the ones that needed it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's just a turn-taking thing,
Oh, my God, yes. Oh, there's a whole other conversation about receiving. Anyway, we won't go there. When I hear you reflect on what you would tell yourself, the other thing, like you say, resilience of the human spirit, which is something that I say all the time, like that just beauty of seeing the resilience in a human spirit, and also that deep self-trust that no matter how hard it is, you will actually, it won't go away, but you will feel good.
Yeah. And there were times when we would not be able to stop. I couldn't stop crying sometimes. And so I would just get in the car in pajamas and drive to a certain friend's house and she would make us hot chocolate. And by the time we got to her house, we'd stop crying. But it was just knowing that it's going to seem impossible. Yeah. And you've just got to move, do something.
Yeah, do something. No, don't just stay stuck. Stay anchored. Oh, my goodness. I knew this was going to be a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.
You're just so easy to talk to, Kylie. You have this extraordinary gentleness about you.
Oh, wow. That is not a word I would choose for myself.
You do.
So thank you.
And it doesn't go with the name of your podcast.
Yeah, I know, right?
But it is a sense talking to you of compassion and gentleness, and I feel entirely safe talking to you. I think you do this really beautifully.
Thank you so much. Wishing you, oh my goodness. I can't wait to read the novel, but I can't wait to be watching from the sidelines, as I have for so long, to see you marinate in the feeling of it actually being in the world and connecting, delivering, no doubt, so many different forms of healing and learning and connecting the dots for whoever needs it, because that's what happens when we put our magic out into the world. So
thank you. I appreciate your support.
We will, in the comments, link to your correct website, which is www.emmagray.com.au, where you'll find all of Emma's gold. And I highly recommend connecting. I love reading what you write, because I always feel it, and to me that's such a pleasure to read from a writer that can elicit that response. That's magic. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story, and may you and your beautiful family continue to find so much light as you're walking through the journey.
Thank you so much. And of course, same with you.
Yes. Thank you, darling.
Thanks, Kylie.
Okay, beautiful. You've listened, you've learnt, you've been inspired, you probably cried and laughed. And there's a lot of things probably moving around your beautiful heart, mind, and soul. And again, I will ask you to do me a favor, helping Emma get this beautiful book baby into the hearts and minds and souls of as many people as possible, so that we can all see and learn from her inspiring perspective on grief, loss, and having loved and lost. If you are listening into this on your phone or your computer, all you need to do is go to the show notes, and twice I have linked the Penguin page where you can order your pre-sale copy and help Emma get right on top of the bestseller list, I have no doubt. And if you're listening any other way, or you can't actually access your phone because you're driving, which is fair enough, please take the time as soon as you can to get onto Instagram or Facebook. Find me and you'll find the post pinned to the top of my profiles everywhere. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you so much for giving me the platform to share stories like this, and may you have the most beautiful day. Well, there you have it, beautiful one. Another inspirational episode, and thank you so much to our guest from today for sharing their journey and leap of faith. So many takeaways, as always. I would love to know what your favorite thing that we discussed or that hit you between the eyeballs to invite you into your own expansion or leap of faith was. Share it on Instagram or Facebook. You'll find me at Kylie Patchett. And I would love it and be so honored if you take the time to leave a review on any of your favorite podcast platforms about this show or the podcast in general. And finally, if you have someone in your life who is another midlife maven who may just need some reminding that she is a powerful, magnetic, amazing woman and that she absolutely deserves the life that she craves, please share us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.